Well, good afternoon, everybody, and how truly wonderful to see you all in reality and no longer virtually. You're most welcome to this annual general meeting for Leeds Community Healthcare Trust. I'm Brodie Clark, I'm the chair of the Trust, and extend a warm welcome to all of you here and others who might be watching live streaming. And we've even got an overflow room next door who some might be quietly slipping into as the afternoon progresses. So a huge welcome and great to see you. I've got a few housekeeping points which I need to just go through with you, if I may. We have carefully assessed the risk of meeting in person, and we believe we've taken proportionate measures in respect of distancing and ventilation. You will want to make sure that you're comfortable on the hand sanitation and the mask issues. And if anybody wants to wear a mask, of course do so, and don't in any way feel inhibited because others are not. There are no fire alarms arranged for today, so if there is a fire alarm, I suggest you leave in the route that you came in and down those stairs unless you have any other instructions given to you. I also want to give a welcome today to Alexis Percival and Frank Swinton. Delighted that you can join us, and you're going to give us a presentation after the AGM around the greening sustainability agenda in respect of the NHS as it currently stands and going forward. An important session, and we look forward to that, and I hope people can stay for that. On today's agenda, you've seen what it looks like. I'll say a few words around the year with the Trust. Thea Stein, the Chief Exec, will give a presentation in more detail of the issues and the events and the highlights and the challenges over the past year. Through the technology, and our colleagues will make sure we get those questions in time for referring to them in the full meeting. But we're going to leave about 15-20 minutes for questions or points from the floor, and we'd urge you to feel comfortable in raising matters that you think are of importance. That will be the close of the AGM, and following that we'll almost go straight forward into the greening and sustainability session. After that, and I'm thinking we've then reached about 3:15 this afternoon, after that there'll be refreshments next door and an opportunity to mix, socialise, converse and just get to know each other a bit more. Let me also say and advertise in passing our very fine annual report for 21-22 is now available online. There are 3 or 4 copies available for people here if you're unable to get them digitally, but it gives a very full outline of the detail of the work of LCH over the year in question. I wanted to start with a few words on the pressures and challenges that we've faced over this past year, and our absolutely unremitting focus on delivering our key high-level goals for the Trust. And then secondly, I want to say a few words on 2 or 3 particularly important priorities which have mattered greatly over the year. So, of course, on our high-level goals, COVID has featured large throughout the year. It has preoccupied everything. Its impact has been and remains utterly challenging. It has affected our staff, as it has at times devastated our communities. It has been dangerous. It has created unparalleled waiting lists and has blocked up the ready and steady flow of patients through the hospitals. Despite this, our high-level goals for this trust have remained forefront, as have our efforts and our commitments over this year towards ensuring the best and most effective delivery of those goals. That is the delivery of outstanding care to all that we have contact with. That is the delivery of a great and compassionate staff with suitable caring and support arrangements in place for them, alongside an abiding determination towards respecting the diversity, equality and inclusion of our workforce, but also of our partners and of our communities. Our goals of delivering further enhanced and increased and successful partnership working arrangements, and our goal of the best and most productive use of our resources. Our efforts on all four of those fronts has never waned. We have tackled it all. We have shown no complacency, and there have been no shortcomings of urgency or importance in all that we have done. We have as a trust been a credit to the people of the communities we serve under the most extreme of circumstances. And within that, we have also sought to fully support the reconfigurating development of the NHS with our contributions to the West Yorkshire integrated care system, with our positive engagement to the forming of the Leeds Place agenda, and with our support, wherever it has been possible, to colleague providers as they tackle their own brands of the challenge. We've played a part in all of that, and we have amply demonstrated that we want the new systems and arrangements to work. And so for me, I would like to offer my recognition and the credit for the continued and strong focus that had been given through the Trust to the delivery against those four key goals. I think for me, there are three other features which I'd want to simply highlight as important in terms of what we've delivered. I'd like to highlight our partnership focus, which has become yet stronger, more direct, and much more part of the DNA of this trust. We are the community, and it's right that we fully engage, embrace and support voluntary and third sector colleagues, that we work hand in glove with NHS provider partners, and that we adopt a citywide view of what we offer and how we deliver. And I think this past year has seen much progress on developments along those areas. Secondly, we have demonstrated, or whilst we've demonstrated outstanding quality in our operational management and our contingency arrangements, largely by adapting our working arrangements and by listening and empowering our frontline staff as they have offered up their clear thinking and their immeasurable know-how. But alongside that fast-paced operational dynamic, we have also continued to drive our strategic improvement agenda across a number of areas. Our children and young people's strategy, our workforce strategy, our third sector strategy, engagement work, estates work, workforce activity, all packages of development, all packages of a much more medium term and strategic look at where we're going and what we're taking on board. And within those packages, there's a real determination and a continued determination to improve and to develop. A determination which was never lost and which draws together our key ambitions as we move forward. And that's just the way the Trust is in terms of wanting that journey. And then thirdly, for me, there's something about a few words on our obsession with assurance over this past year. and rightly so. We couldn't go through the massive package of changes and pressures without constantly referring back to our assurance mechanisms and processes. They're not there through our insecurity or simply because of habit. They are there to ensure that we are safe in everything that we do, and that within this year of change and challenge, we in no way ever knowingly jeopardize the safety of the people of this community, nor the safety of our staff. So, it's been an exhausting and turbulent year. It's been a creative and developmental year. It's been a year that we owe so much to our staff at all levels, and in a year in which I have been proud to chair such a fine organisation. Perhaps just one very final and general comment from me. Any 1 year snapshot, any single photograph, any once a year AGM session does little to capture the sense of the ongoing journey. Be sure nothing has stopped. This continues to be work, significant work in progress for the benefit of this community and towards the design and build of a re-choreographed NHS. That work continues, and it does so with no less commitment, determination or ambition throughout 2022 and beyond. You can be absolutely assured on that. And then for me, very finally, my thanks to the board at LCH. Always there when it has mattered. Always delivering and conscious of new thinking, and always conscientious in delivering effectively what they have said they would deliver. It's been a great performance and effort from board through the entirety of the organisation. That's all I wanted to say by way of introduction. I want to hand over now to Thea, who will take us into something more of the detail across the Trust and the detail of what the achievements have been.
These are made for people of his size, not mine. No, you've taken my speech. Stop. Right.
Okay.
It's never made for people who are as small as me. Right. It's really nice being in a room with people this year. Last year, we had a COVID outbreak, and there was the three of us and my lovely comms colleagues in the boardroom. And the year before that, I was in my room at home, standing up, talking to a machine. So it's very nice to actually be in a room with people, and those people who aren't in the room, it's very nice that you're here as well. It's another year that I'm enormously proud to have been part of LCH and part of Leeds. Our vision has always been to provide excellent care to all of the communities we serve, and to do it in partnership with others, and to do it in line with our values, and to do it in line with our behaviours. And we've continued to do that this year. We make mistakes as well. We're bound to. And we get things wrong sometimes, and then we apologise and we learn. It's really important to us to listen, learn and improve, and not just to say that we're perfect all the time. But we aim always to serve our communities. It's become my tradition, really, to take some time to say thank you to people and to acknowledge stuff that we've done. And what I say, it's the only time of the year I ever write a speech, because it means it's available for the rest of the organisation to read, because we'll put it out to everybody as well. And I want to start by talking about hidden people and hidden services. The public don't always see, but they see the impact of their work. It's the engine rooms, they're sometimes called, because without them, none of us could do what we do, and they keep the show on the road. And they're the glue in our system. The most important glue in the system is always our administrative staff. There's a phrase that we've banned at LCH, which is, "I'm only admin." You're not allowed to say that. It makes us all really cross, because we wouldn't be here and none of what we do would work if we didn't have our administrative staff. So I want to start by thanking them. And we wouldn't be where we are, if we didn't have the continual hard work and the innovation our recruitment service has shown during this year. They've been under pressure all year round because we constantly need to think and work and implement new ways of working to get staff into the organisation. And they keep trying to help us and to succeed. Working with others in training and development and our Director of Nursing, we've been thrilled to have our first international recruits to LCH. And it was an absolute delight to welcome them to the Trust on what I thought was a really warm summer's day, and they told me was really, really cold. So I'm a little bit anxious about how they're going to cope this winter, but it was a real delight meeting them. We've rolled out new ways of working all through the year. New IT systems, new reward system, new ways of communicating, IT, digital systems. It increasingly underpins everything we do. And so thank you to those people. One outstanding example, again something hidden, has been the rollout of e-prescribing. This enabled us to support shielding practitioners during the height of the pandemic, in addition to providing improving care for patients who can collect medicines or have them delivered from pharmacies closer to home. And it improves our working with our partners, particularly and predominantly primary care, such an important partner for us. And it all sounds really simple when I say it like that. But it really wasn't. It really, really wasn't. And a lot of trusts haven't achieved it. We are delighted that the COVID vaccination programme, Trust Leadership, has transferred to LCH under the continued personal leadership of Sam Prince, sitting there, who has led the programme since its inception. In fact, many of us now associate the vaccination programme with this building, because this is where many of us came either to volunteer or to have our vaccines, or indeed both. And we may be delighted to be leading it on behalf of the City of Leeds, but it's been a lot of hard work, and it still is a lot of hard work. And we're just about to start the next COVID booster campaign alongside flu, and we know it's very challenging, but we're very proud. As Brodie said, we rarely work alone. We always work with others in partnership, and this year we've been really, really pleased to launch our new children's strategy. And again, such an easy thing to say, isn't it? Brodie said we launched and did our work on our children's strategy. But that has been a lot of work from a lot of people, alongside continuing to deliver all our children's services, which have been under immense pressure, both during the height of pandemic and still. It saddens me, as I'm sure it would you, to know how much pressure our safeguarding service has been under and continues to be under. Because they support the children who are most at risk in this city, but they've continued to deliver exceptional, exceptional care despite the pressure they've been under. One of the partnerships that we're most proud of, and we've done a lot of work on this year, is our partnership with third sector colleagues. And we've got Pip with us today, which is lovely to see you. And we've taken forward the third sector strategy. We launched at this AGM 2 years ago. And we brought it to life, for example, in the enhanced service, a service that works in partnership with our neighbourhood teams, comprising 14 different voluntary sector organisations working alongside us. And BASIS, a partnership which is working alongside us, ensuring we deliver services that are accessible and inclusive for women sex workers. It's early days, but we know we're seeing immediate success, and we know that this partnership is absolutely essential to us and absolutely essential to the way we work. The integrated neighbourhood teams have again been outstanding. They are an essential part of keeping the most vulnerable Leeds residents safe, and they have worked relentlessly and tirelessly now for several years. And they support people in their own homes day and night. Sometimes people forget that we have night services. All night long, people are out there supporting people, sitting in their homes, being with them. They keep Leeds moving. They've done this and they continue to still change and develop, which is quite extraordinary given the pressure they're under. And many, many people across our organisation have come forward to help those services at the times of the greatest challenge, despite their own rise in waiting lists and their own rise in referrals, the cook service, stroke service, physio, podiatry, to name just a few. And I know how hard that redeployment was for many people in our trust. And we have to acknowledge and thank them for what they've done. We've kept Leeds moving through some really tough times. We've established a transfer of care hub at LTHT. In fact, I just went to visit them before I came here today. And it all sounds very techie, but it isn't. It's under excellent leadership now, and it's a group of staff working together basically to get people out of hospital as quickly as they can and get them to the right place. And again, that sounds easy to say, but my goodness, it's extremely hard to always do it. Much of our work seems easy to say, and lots of our work is really hard to deliver. And much of our work is hidden. I could stand here all afternoon and talk about our liaison and diversion service in Hull. It's extraordinary. I'm not going to, it's all right, stay calm. I could talk about the work in Adolbeck and the work that we've done there, which has been a really, really hard year for our services there. And I could certainly talk to you about CAMS and under the tsunami of need that they've met and continue to look at this year. There's so many services who have done so much. I don't really want to talk about COVID. Brodie's mentioned it. But during this year, we have dealt with those waves of COVID. And one of the things that's kept us safe and kept us calm and kept us compassionate and this city safe has been our amazing IPC team. I went to see them this morning as well. And I couldn't really not mention our long COVID service. Our long COVID service, their rehab booklet for patients has been adopted and promoted by the World Health Organization. I do think one should pause at that. You know, our long COVID service rehab booklet is now the booklet used by the World Health Organization. The world. And just to throw a curveball in, of course, the IPC team with our sexual health team has had to deal with the new MPX monkeypox vaccine, just when they thought that maybe things were calming down a bit. All our staff have continued to be outstanding through everything that we throw at them. That's one of our dogs working from home during the tense times. It looks very serious, probably got a lot on. They've continued to develop and continue to have really difficult conversations because we aim to make LCH a safe place for everybody to work and for everyone to speak out and for everybody to try and to fail and to learn again. So I want to finish where I started with what I'd call some of the hidden people. Society likes to often attack NHS managers. It's popular to talk about how many managers there are in the NHS. But I want to say thank you to every operational and every clinical manager and leader in this organisation that works so hard every day to support all of our clinicians day in and day out. They wouldn't be on the front line doing what they do, supported by that underarching network. Thank you to my team, the directors and the whole board. I wouldn't have been any other organisation during this year, absolutely wouldn't. And I wouldn't be somewhere else besides LCH, and we're right next door to a hospital, but LCH is the heart of the community. We are from the community, we're part of the community, we always work in the community, we serve that community, and we absolutely look forward to doing it again next year. So thank you. I'm going to bring Brian.
Thank you, Thea. You can lose the picture of the dogs has gone now, thank goodness for that. Not it hanging around. Brodie referred to the annual report. There it is, it's looking good, isn't it? There's 50 pages of accounts in here. If that doesn't sell it to you, I don't know what will. 50 pages of accounts. Miss it or miss out. It's my job to stand here and talk to you about the financial results for a financial year that finished 6 months ago. It seems somewhat irrelevant at these stages, but I am going to simply talk to you about those financial results. If you can put the slide up, please. Thank you. So, what you can see there is lots of ticks. Excuse me. That summarises it. Lots of achievement. That's good, isn't it? It's not why we're there. It's not why we're part of LCH. That's why we're part of LCH, to provide care. That's a byproduct of it. It's good. What it does is it provides financial stability, and it allows us to deliver the excellent care. It allows us to deliver the innovation. It allows us to deliver the change. It allows us to look after our staff in the way that Brodie and Thea have alluded to. Last year, in 2021-22, we were still in a COVID emergency financial regime. That gave us the flexibility to do some of the things that we've done, and I'll come on to talk about this year and the outlook for the future. Whilst we did have the flexibility, maintaining financial control during that, when people's focus was undoubtedly and rightly on delivering care and looking after their patients and themselves, we did maintain those financial controls, and that's part of what leads to those results there. We were also, as a partner in a system that, again, Thea and Brodie have talked about, we were able to support other financial organisations and provide support across the city. I think it's important to recognise that whilst we were doing all the innovation that we were doing and providing support to other organisations, at no time was money a constraint on what we wished to deliver in Leeds Community Healthcare. As well as delivering those financial results and delivering the innovation, we fully utilised our £3 million capital allocation. Eventually, at some point during this year, you will see the results of that. You will see a completely refurbished Seacroft clinic. And you probably won't see, but it's worth noting that we spent over £500,000 last year on upgrading fire safety works in all our building. That goes on up in the roofs, all that sort of thing. You don't see it, but it's important that we do it. Right, and now the uplifting bit. I'm looking forward. You don't have to come from a different planet, really. You can read about the financial challenges this country faces. You can read about the financial challenges in the NHS. As we've heard, this year we are now part of a new formal system. We're one of 9 NHS trusts in West Yorkshire, part of the West Yorkshire Integrated Care System. Our financial performance this year, our financial results this year, will more than ever be bound into the financial performance of that system, particularly the financial performance of Leeds as a place. Responding to the challenges of COVID and some of the waiting list backlogs that Brodie and Thea have talked about addressing some of the flow of patients through our system is a challenge, and that's reflecting at the moment in terms of financial challenges. And Leeds Community Healthcare is not an island in that. It will impact on us and will impact on the way we go about our business. I do expect, I'm sorry to say, that the financial challenges faced by this organisation will increase this year and for the foreseeable future. However, I've had the privilege of presenting the accounts of this organisation to an AGM, whether I was stood in my own home, on Teams, or actually stood in various places around Leeds. I've had that privilege of presenting those results for 10 years now. This organisation has enjoyed financial stability over those 10 years. We have had a little wobble a couple of times, not often, but we have always been able to focus on the delivery of high quality healthcare. Money has never been a driver in this organisation, nor should it be. We've always understood the importance of financial control. We've always understood the importance of value for money. We've always understood the importance of living within our means. In an increasingly challenged healthcare system, with those financial challenges, with the challenges of delivering the care that the public rightly demands of us, the financial principles that have stood us in good stead for each one of those 10 years will be ever more important. And I'm confident that all that we've done this year, last year, all the years before, will help us rise to that challenge. In that vein, I want to finish with some thank yous, as Brodie and Thea have done. There's some repetition here. Thank you to every budget holder who has helped manage the money, manage financial control across some difficult times. Despite all of the responsibilities that they as budget holders had, they had an eye on their budgets. To the clinicians who worked with budget holders, thank you. It would be very easy to ignore the finances. It's taxpayers' money at the end of the day. We should all be interested in how Leeds Community Healthcare spends our money in delivering healthcare. To all our managers who support those clinicians, and even to my director colleagues who listen when I might occasionally, just occasionally, question a financial proposal to spend yet more money. Particularly this year, she's not here. I just want to express my thanks to my Deputy Director of Finance, Shireen Hawkins. Shireen would be able to answer any question you had about those 50 pages of accounts that are in the annual report. I wouldn't, so don't ask. This will be, the accounts that are in this annual report will be the last that Shireen will produce for Leeds Community Healthcare. She will be the first to say that those accounts are the culmination of a year's work for the finance department, for budget holders, for managers and for corporate colleagues. And she'd be right, they are. But they've been delivered each year to such a high quality because of Shireen, and I want to thank her. And I want to thank everyone in LCH who helped us deliver an array of green ticks. Thank you very much.
From Thea and from Brian. Lots of information, lots of facts and figures, and lots of a sense and a feel for the trust over the past year. I'd quite like to welcome questions and points that people may wish to raise as a consequence of those presentations, either within the room or if colleagues at the table have got other questions that might be coming in from outside, then let's take those. Questions and comments, and it would be helpful if you were able to give your name and if you're from an organisation, that would be interesting and useful as well. So please feel free. I'm happy to stand here for quite a long time. Okay.
But it is working. Somebody's texted me to say they're watching it live and it looks good. So there you go.
Okay. Nothing at all. Yes. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, Pip from Thorn Central here along with Linda. Didn't the question just wanted to just say thank you. I think it's been such a kind of comprehensive overview, such a kind of thoughtful and personable reflection from all of you on the work that you've done, and just to kind of echo that sort of sense of partnership and wanting the best for the city and doing that together. So yeah, I didn't want you to feel like you've got to stand and wait ages for somebody to say something, and just wanted to kind of second that sort of general sense of that sort of celebration of how much has been achieved despite the most awful of difficult times, and some of the strength that comes out of that, because it accelerates partnership.
And Pip, you're part of the programme of working with Sam and the engagement between ourselves. Is there anything more you want to say about that would be of interest to people?
I think we've acknowledged, and I think that's what's so good to hear, that we're acknowledging that this isn't easy, that often the work is easy to say and so much more difficult to do. A lot of this is about changing cultures and changing relationships and changing how we work together for the benefit of people and communities rather than organisations, and how perhaps things have worked sometimes around staff or organisations in the past. It takes a leap, doesn't it, to really put people first and put health inequalities and diversity of our most marginalised communities at the heart of that. Sam and I co-chair the Third Sector Strategy Group, and we've just had a brilliant contribution from our colleagues from Healthy Leeds Together, who are working with some of the most marginalised communities to really think How do we shift from talking about health inequalities to really addressing them very differently together? And it's that kind of willingness to have those conversations, I think, that will help us make that difference.
Okay, thank you very much. Very much more of an outward looking rather than an inward obsession, really, and that's a great place to be and a great direction to be travelling. Thank you for that. Other comments, questions? Well, I'm going to look to close things down for the AGM, unless there's anything else. If there are other issues or points you want to raise, and if you don't want to do it in this kind of forum, there will be an opportunity over a cup of tea after the meeting. Please take that opportunity and don't leave here today with something still bugging you that you wished you'd just kind of got off your chest and been able to say. And we welcome your comments and contributions. So do it then if you choose not to do it now. Okay, I'm going to move us on. Thank you. That formally brings the AGM to a close. And thank you for coming, and thank you for being so attentive, and thank you for Thea and Brian in the presentations. I'm now going to invite Alexis Percival, who is the Environmental and Sustainability Manager at the Yorkshire Ambulance Service, and Frank Swinton, who is the Climate Change Lead for West Yorkshire and Harrogate Health and Care Partnership, to take us through a presentation, a Greener Yorkshire NHS for now and for the future. It's really relevant stuff, but it often kind of finds its way into the second division. And there's a bit of us keen that you bring that up, you highlight it, you spotlight it, and you talk to us for a bit about what more might be done, could be done. And I think at the end of that, there'll be an opportunity if people want to participate in that sort of conversation, then we'd be very happy for that to happen. So the floor is yours, ladies and gentlemen. Can I introduce to you Alexis Percival and Frank Swinton.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Alexis Percival. I'm the Environmental and Sustainability Manager with the Yorkshire Ambulance Service, and I've been invited by the wonderful Harriet Jones, who is your wonderful sustainability lead. This is an agenda that should be on everybody's lips, and literally it should be something that we're all acting on. Because the climate emergency is a health emergency, and for all of us in healthcare, we need to act on this. And we need to understand how it's affecting us now, and how it's going to affect us in the not very distant future. So I'll take you through what's happened in the not very distant past, because this is something that's happened to us in 2019. And we literally have lost, we've had flash floods, we've had road infrastructure that we've lost, and these are photographs that have been taken by my paramedics here in Yorkshire and have affected us every single day of the past 3 or 4 years, not just from the ambulance service, but for everybody who's working within the health system. Fires have affected breathing problems and given us many different issues across the board, from asthma to COPD. But also we've got, how do we respond? How do we react? This is one of our rapid response vehicles that was lost in the Sheffield floods and floated downstream about 500 metres. The paramedic, who was also rescuing somebody at the same time, the two of them ended up with hypothermia, and we could have potentially lost 2 people during those floods as well. But also it's something that's affecting our infrastructure as well. So this is our ambulance station in the Sheffield floods in 2019. That community was spent the following year having to clear up, during COVID, all of their houses, reconstruct their houses and get everything back up and running. So climate change, with pandemics, with everything else, it is seriously affecting the way that we can respond. And this is something that is very, very recent history. So this is July and August this year, a heat wave that has affected us and affected everybody on the front line, everybody in hospitals, everybody within our hospital system, as well as those working within the healthcare system. But also, it's continuing to affect us. This is Eckert Reservoir just up the road. that has less than 30% capacity. So we've got a drought problem as well as the heat wave, the flooding, every single thing that's climate change will throw at us. But also we've got a ticking time bomb that is set to affect us as well. It might not affect us directly here in Leeds, but within the next 80 years we are set to have a 1 metre minimum sea level rise, which will take out Hull. Some may say not as much of a problem for us, but we've got over 1 million people that will be on the motorway, one-way direction here into Leeds and Bradford. So it will affect our healthcare system because that will kind of put more pressure on. But in reality, we could be looking at a 3 metre sea level rise, which means we've permanently lost that land. We've permanently had to move those people. Now, the IPC, which is the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, have predicted that by 2300, we are looking at a 13 metre sea level rise. Now, this might not affect us, but it will affect our children, it will affect our grandchildren, it will affect our great-grandchildren. So we are having a lot of pressures. But if we get this seriously wrong, sorry, I'm the bad cop out of the good cop, bad cop couple here. We are looking at a doomsayer 50 metre sea level rise. So Yorkshire will be a sea of islands as such. And that is with the Arctic and the Antarctic being lost. So how do we deal with this? How do we look to build in resilience and adapt to climate change? Because it's not going anywhere. We will have to deal with this next year, the year after, and going forwards. This is what climate change looks like for a healthcare system. It's very simplistic, but in reality you can add on many, many different layers within this system. We're looking at flash floods, surface water floods, which lead to a variety of different injuries, different infections that will affect us, as well as mental health. So many people are already suffering with that every time it rains in different parts of the county. We've got the direct impacts of those floodwaters, along with the more prolonged aspects that have been affecting communities like in Pakistan, with waterborne diseases like dengue and malaria becoming really, really prolific at the moment. But also we've got storms and high winds. Japan is being battered at the moment. As of today, they have got a huge hurricane that is coming in, and they've moved 4 million people. So that is something that is affecting somewhere a different part of the world, but that will have a direct impact on our supply chain. That's having a direct impact on our face mask deliveries, our glove deliveries, things that we rely on. So all of these are having a direct impact now for us. It might delay deliveries, but also at the same time there's a mass movement of people that will come with that. Heat waves, drought and sea level rise will also have more impacts. And we're already starting to see this with food shortages, civil unrest around the world, movement of people. So all of these are starting to have the impact. But the other aspect is we will end up with loss of life. And we will end up with that on an annual basis increasing dramatically. It's pretty dire, but we can build in resilience with this. So we recognise this was a problem in many, many years. All of us working in sustainability have identified this as a challenge. On the 1st of October, middle of the pandemic, the Greener NHS was launched. And this aligned with the 2050 target from the government, but it said we need to go harder and we need to go faster than this. It's embedded in the NHS standard contract, so it's obligated. Everybody has to look at it. We've also got the PPN, for anybody who's into procurement notices, for social value and net zero, so it's embedded as a 10% weighting for everything. Everything you buy has to assess that impact on the local community and have a net zero agenda going forwards. And it's also in legislation now, so the Health and Wellbeing Act 2022, it's there. We've got that, Health and Social Care Act. So it recognises that climate change and the health emergency are intertwined, and if we don't get this right, we are going to be quite, have a lot of problems associated with it. So what is this net zero agenda? Basically, we've got 3 scopes. So scope 1, 2 and 3. Scope 1 and 2, we can control. So that has a 2040 target that we have to be at zero carbon emissions. The NHS Carbon Footprint Plus has a target of 2045. So we, as an NHS, contributing around 5% of the UK's emissions, have to be at net zero. This is a challenge that we need to look at now, because essentially we need to be at 80% by 2030. That's not very far away. And that embeds things like our patient transport, our facilities, our estates, all of the things we can control. We also need to work with our supply chain in order to achieve the other stuff in the Scope 3. So we've got a big challenge ahead of us. And the Leeds City region is also committed to get to net zero by 2038. So there's lots of other elements and additional pressures that kind of go with all of these different parts of the agenda. So I will now pass over to the good cop who can tell you what we can actually do, and here's Frank Swinton.
Thank you, Alexis. So I'm not going to be totally good cop, because as you can see, I'm going to start with a little summary, perhaps a paraphrase of some of the stuff that Alexis has just told you. We've just had one of the coolest summers of the next 200 years. I think that's a really interesting and alternative way to think about the strategies that we write now to go forwards. Alexis spoke about global supply chains. We're causing a lot of harm by providing care. So what some of you might not know is that I'm also a consultant anaesthetist at Airedale Hospital, as well as the climate change lead for the West Yorkshire ICS. And I see a huge amount of single-use plastic being used, a huge amount of pharmaceutical chemicals being used, and a huge amount of energy being used in terms of ventilation, heating, cooling, the machinery. As you've heard, West Yorkshire citizens on the whole are people with lots of difficulties in this life. We don't have an equal standing compared with other citizens of the rest of the UK, particularly of England. And if we delay, things are going to get harder and harder. This is not going to go away, and it is not going to be fixed by me or Alexis. This is something that all of us have to do, have to get to grips with, have to educate ourselves about, and have to take responsibility for. The integrated care system has 10 big ambitions, and big ambition number 9 is that we aspire to be a global leader in responding to climate change through increased investment, mitigation, and culture change throughout our system. As Brian told us earlier, the increased investment part of that big ambition seems to look more and more shaky every year. And I think it's increasingly apparent to me that if we are going to invest in climate change, and often the investment required is small, it's pump priming, that will help to make changes which can save us money in the long run, such as more efficient lighting and heating systems, then that money is going to have to come from within the current system. Before I come on to that, I want to say that it absolutely made my heart sing when I read this information that was on my seat when I arrived. Because I think that you guys are already doing really, really good stuff. And I'm going to paraphrase some of this through a climate change lens, if you like. So we want to care for our patients. And in here it says specifically, can't find it. Oh, here we go. We'll support self-care where appropriate and possible. We'll encourage people to live. Don't you just hate it? Oh, here we go. And where possible, we will avoid hospital admission, because it's very clear that the lowest environmental impact of healthcare is not providing that healthcare in the first place. So let's have much more talk about prevention, much more talk about people leading well lives, healthy lives, that will reduce the demand for traditional health and social care. The next bullet point is to recognise our communities, and that's absolutely on the button as well, because when the floods come, or the droughts, or the fires, dense social communities are much, much more resilient than communities of groups of people that don't know their neighbours. So people will need to come together and pool together, and if they know each other's names beforehand, that makes those groups much, much more resilient. We've seen that across the world time and time again. Next, we're going to support and collaborate positively with our partners. And that, again, is about increasing the diversity of thought, making sure that every voice in the community is heard as we work towards solutions to some of these wicked problems. And deliver new ways of working. Well, I hope that after the words that you've heard from particularly Alexis, but also myself, it's very clear that going forwards, we're going to have to do lots of things very dramatically differently, and working in our communities with our patients with lots of diversity of thought is I would suggest, a really strong start for getting going on that. So what can each of us actually do? What's the ask here? Well, I think going forwards, the stuff up there on the top left, the play the game, that's do what you can within the system that we currently have. And it's not very sexy, but it's about playing by the rules. Do all those things that we know we're supposed to do. A lot of this is the stuff that the large organisations, global organisations, would like us to focus on because it takes the heat off them. It's all about whether or not we're putting the rubbish in the correct bin, rather than do we need to use the stuff in the first place. That doesn't mean that this isn't important. I think it's really important, and I think it's important because it demonstrates to those around us that we're taking this seriously, and it's important that we are seen to be leading by example. Then we can change the rules, and that's stuff that I think we could do without too much trouble and effort. It's about making sure that we're doing the right things as well as doing things right. And it's about making sure that we are every bit as economical with our environmental resources as we are with our financial resources. And then finally, there's this change the game. And this is where I think the really big ticket items are. They are hard to do, they are slow burn, but if we don't start talking about it and thinking about it now, then they will be even harder to achieve if we only come to them in another 5 or 10 years' time. I'm going to stop there. I'd love to have conversations with anybody and everybody, but back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Frank and Alexis. I took away a number of thoughts from that. I very much enjoyed the way you laid out the sheer scale of the impending problem and drove that into the NHS context and kind of customised the issues and the risks and the concerns, not least around ambulance service delivery. I heard you talk about a reasonably high-level critique on the LCH performance in terms of what you read and what you saw. It'd be great at some stage to get a more detailed account of that, and we should do that at some stage in the near future. I think I also heard implicitly that small things matter and small things make a difference, and I think we need to get our heads around that a bit more. And I think I heard something about set an example, and there's lots of people in here who are in a position to set that example. So thank you very much for the presentation to both of you. I'm very happy to take questions or comments again from people. Yes, Alison.
Yeah, my name's Alison. I'm a non-exec director at LCH. Yeah, and I just wondered what's happening nationally at government level to encourage the NHS to as a unit, as a movement, to do something differently, because I think expecting each trust to do things is great, and obviously we're on the bus, but actually mandating that from the top is what's going to really drive that change.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. So the short answer is that, as Alexis alluded to, the NHSE has made a commitment. We were the world's first health system to commit to being net carbon zero by 2040 within those things that we can control. A lot of the finer detail on the delivery of that is left to ICSs and to individual organisations. There is a huge amount of work going on. It might not be immediately visible, but it absolutely is there. And I'm sure Harriet will be able to give you chapter and verse about LCH's contribution, if you'd like. I suppose a slight word of caution on that, which is that for lots of good reasons, the Greener NHS, which is the subsection of NHS England, is focused almost wholly upon carbon reduction and that goal of reaching net carbon zero. And that is insufficient to bring us to long-term sustainability. So we also need to be thinking about lots of other dimensions, such as social sustainability, inequalities, but also biodiversity, ocean acidification, etc., etc.
I like the way you talk about, playing the game or changing the game. I think I increasingly reflect that if you don't change the game, is there really value in playing the game? And I speak as somebody who does try and put everything in the right thing and all the rest of it. But I would increasingly be of the view that if the game doesn't change internationally, forget nationally even, there really is limited value in quite a lot of the totemic acts that we take. What's your view?
On a dark day, I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
I try not to have too many dark days. They're not much fun. I suppose at a philosophical level, if we accept that it's just too hard, we're never going to achieve it, what's the point in trying, then I guarantee you we'll never get there. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And therefore, I choose to continue to try. I think it's also important, it is my impression, working both at a regional level but also in an acute trust, that nobody feels, or very few people feel like they have the authority or permission to change the game. And I think I would challenge that. I think it's difficult and it goes against the grain and it rubs people up the wrong way. But I think that actually probably most of us do have leadership positions and or are able to stick our head above the parapet and say, no, we want to do this differently.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, points, comments? Yes.
Infection control-wise, how would evaluation be needed regarding single-use plastics, etc.?
I'm going to hand you over to the global expert in reusable PPE. I'm not joking.
So just to kind of give you something that has been 2 years of my life, this is a reusable face mask, which is a type 2R. We got through 3.5 billion of these. Prior to the pandemic, we got through about 2 million. Not 2 billion, 2 million. Within the ambulance service, we used 20,000, and I think Harriet probably says around the similar number pre-pandemic. This is the direction that we need to be going in, because this is a circular economy. So it's something that can be reused at the end of its life in an alternative aspect. This probably costs around £3-4, a face mask 20p. The economics don't stack up, but they do, because the reality is you can recondition this into baby blankets, into whatever you wanted to. Same goes with reusable gowns, reusable curtains, reusable sheets, things that we've classified as being single use. And infection prevention control are fully on board with all of this agenda now. There is lots of conversations to continue to go through this, but we need to get to the point that we are not shipping things halfway across the world. And we need to get to the point that we're not relying on other countries. We're not relying on the fossil fuel industry for the single-use plastic items, face masks, whatever it might be. And also the point that we can actually manufacture something locally. We've got local economy. And when we get to the point we're having lots of different economic and system collapse, which unfortunately will happen at some point, we need to have that embedded as a support system around it. So it's thinking outside of the box, and as Frank was saying about how we kind of lead ourselves on this. We've got the opportunity within Yorkshire. We've got so many different fabric manufacturers historically. We've got lots of things that we can use in order to move forwards on this kind of local manufacturing aspect. So we need to think past a single-use item and look at what the direction we need to be going in. And Europe is starting to follow as well, so we can be leaders in a lot of these things. I'm helping to write the ISO standard and the SEN standard for reusable face masks at the moment. And they are a long way behind us, but the opportunities are there to kind of move things forward.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to round that up. Harriet is doing a brilliant job within this trust. Thank you, Harriet, for the work that you have triggered and the thinking that's begun and the connection that you've obviously got with colleagues across the piece. Can I ask us, ladies and gentlemen, to give a good round of applause, please, to Alexis and Frank. So that brings us to the end of both sessions. Thank you again for coming. There's been some good bits of conversation. There's been some helpful and excellent feedback from people who have spoken about the work of the Trust in order to make it clear and open what we are doing and what we are succeeding and where the challenges have been. We welcome you to stay for now some light refreshment, and that will be an opportunity to have further conversations, take up any issues that you might prefer to do in that setting. But thank you very much, all of you, for coming along this afternoon. Thank you.